Kids teased the timid girl until she showed what she could do. Now they wish they hadn't. 16-year-old Bethany Caldwell was always the kind who liked being out of sight, not standing out. Small and quiet, always wearing baggy sweaters, and looking down, she walked through Northwood High like a shadow. Her family had only come to this new town 4 months before because her mom got a better job. Bethany still felt like she didn't belong, trying to figure out how everything worked at this new school. The art room on the second floor became her safe place when it was time for lunch. Instead of going with the other students to the lunchroom or outside, Bethany went to the empty art room. There, she could eat her apple slices in peace, with the smell of clay and the low sound of the lights. She'd get out her old sketch pad and draw pictures, forgetting about the real world for a little while. What no one at school knew was that Bethany had been taking karate lessons for 7 years at her grandpa's dojo back in Denver. Even though she was small, she had strong muscles from all the training, all the kicks and punches. She could do a perfect front kick, knew 15 ways to block a punch, and had won 2 state-level karate competitions. But Bethany's mother, a kind woman who taught history, had always told her to only use her skills if she had to. "Your karate is to keep you safe, honey," she would say, "not to show off." The problems began in her 3rd week at Northwood High. Tiffany Sinclair, a tall girl with long hair who always seemed to be the center of attention, first saw Bethany near the water fountains. Tiffany was the queen bee of the sophomore class, with her perfect hair, expensive clothes, and friends who did everything she said. She had sharp green eyes and a smile that didn't look real when she looked at people she thought were less important. "Look at this shy one," Tiffany whispered to her friend Ashley Davis, but Bethany could still hear her. "Does she ever take off that big sweater? Maybe she's ugly underneath." Bethany just tightened her grip on her backpack and went to her class, pretending she didn't hear. But Tiffany's words made Bethany feel bad, and things got worse from there. The teasing got worse little by little. First, it was just mean things said in the hallway. Tiffany would say things about Bethany's shoes, her hair, or how she was always alone. Ashley would laugh when Tiffany did, and soon other kids started paying attention. Bethany noticed how people would stop talking when she walked by, how groups would move away from her, making her feel like she was walking through a field of whispered insults. The lunchroom became a really bad place. Bethany had tried eating there during her first week, but Tiffany's table was right in the middle of everything. Every time Bethany sat down, she could hear Tiffany's loud voice. "Oh my gosh, look at how she eats. Has she ever seen a salad before?" Or, "I bet she never brushes her hair. That's why she always wears that same sweater." Bethany's face would get hot with shame, but she made herself finish her lunch slowly, bite by bite. She wouldn't let them see her run away. But after a while, she stopped going to the lunchroom at all and started eating in the art room where she could have some peace. The mean behavior didn't stop at lunchtime. In the hallways, Tiffany would bump into Bethany on purpose, then act like it was an accident. "Oh, sorry, didn't see you there," she'd say, acting like she cared. "You're so tiny. It's like you don't even exist." During group projects in science class, Bethany was always left out of groups, forced to work by herself, while Tiffany made sure everyone knew it was because nobody knows her, and she's probably not even smart enough to help. The teacher, Mr. Harrison, didn't seem to notice what was happening, more worried about the lesson plans and what he had to teach. Bethany's thoughts were always fighting each other. "I could stop this right now," she'd think when she heard Tiffany's laughter in the hallway. "One quick move, and she'd never bother me again." But then she'd remember her mom's words, telling her to use her karate wisely. She'd remember her grandpa's lessons about respect and control, about how true strength comes from holding back, not from fighting. The worst part was the people who watched. Bethany saw students who didn't even like Tiffany laugh at her jokes, join in on making her feel bad. She saw teachers look right past things that happened in front of them, too busy or too uncomfortable to do anything. Being alone was almost worse than the teasing. At home, Bethany's parents saw that she was getting more and more withdrawn. Her father, David, would see his daughter looking out her bedroom window for hours, thinking about something. "How was school, honey?" he'd ask, but Bethany would just shrug and say it was okay. She didn't want to tell them what was happening, didn't want to see her father upset or her mother worried. They had enough to worry about with the new house, the new school district, just starting over in a new place. The last straw was on a Wednesday morning in late November. Bethany was at her locker, changing out her books, when she felt someone grab the back of her sweater and pull her backwards. Her long brown hair fell down, and she saw Tiffany standing there, smirking. "Well, well," Tiffany said loudly, so everyone in the hallway could hear. "Look what was hiding under that sweater. I thought you might have a hunchback or something." Bethany's face turned red as she quickly pulled her sweater back up, but Tiffany wasn't finished. She reached out and pulled it off again, even harder this time. "Don't hide from us, little mouse. We just want to see what you really look like." A crowd started to gather, drawn by the noise. Bethany could feel everyone staring at her, could hear the whispers getting louder. Her heart was pounding, but not because she was scared, because she was trying so hard not to do anything. "Stop," Bethany said softly, so quiet you could barely hear her. "What was that?" Tiffany put her hand to her ear, acting. "Did the little mouse say something? Speak up, we can't hear you." Ashley giggled next to her. "Maybe she doesn't even speak English. Maybe that's why she's so quiet all the time." The crowd laughed, and Bethany felt something break inside her. All the lessons her grandpa had taught her about holding back suddenly felt far away. But she made herself take a deep breath, pull her sweater back up, and turn to go to class. Tiffany wasn't going to let her get away that easily. She grabbed Bethany's backpack and yanked it off her shoulders, sending her books and papers flying all over the floor. "Oops," Tiffany said, pretending to be sorry. "How clumsy of me." Bethany knelt down to pick up her things, her hands shaking a little, not from fear, but from trying not to react. She could feel Tiffany standing over her, could feel the crowd getting closer. Someone stepped on one of her notebooks, leaving a dirty mark on the cover. "You know what?" Tiffany said, crouching down next to Bethany. "I'm actually trying to help you here. You're never going to make friends if you keep hiding from everyone. Maybe if you actually talk to people, instead of being so weird, you wouldn't be so pathetic." Bethany clenched her teeth. She picked up the last of her papers and stood up slowly, carefully. When she looked at Tiffany, there was something different in her eyes, a flash of something that made Tiffany take a step back. "I said stop," Bethany repeated, but this time her voice was stronger. It was quiet, but it cut through the noise in the hallway. For a second, Tiffany looked unsure, but then she looked around at the crowd and stood up straight again. "Or what? What are you going to do about it, little mouse?" Bethany looked at her for a long moment, and Tiffany thought she saw something dangerous in the quiet girl's face. But then Bethany just tightened her backpack straps and walked away, leaving Tiffany standing in the hallway feeling strange and uneasy. That day was a turning point. Over the next few weeks, Bethany started to change in small ways. She started getting to school earlier, spending time in the gym before classes. She'd run on the treadmill, lift weights, do stretches that reminded her body how strong it was. Working out helped her deal with the stress, but it also reminded her of who she really was underneath the shy exterior. Other students started noticing little things. Bethany walked differently now, standing up straight and holding her head high. She still wore her sweater, but she didn't hide inside it anymore. In classes, she started talking more, her voice getting louder when she answered questions. Her grades, which were already good, started to get even better. Mr. Harrison, the science teacher, was the first adult to really notice the change. During a lesson about famous scientists, Bethany made a smart comment about how even people who are different can make a big difference. After class, Mr. Harrison asked Bethany to stay for a minute. "I've noticed you're coming out of your shell more," the teacher said kindly. "I'm glad to see you finding your voice." Bethany nodded, but didn't say much. She was still trying to understand what was happening inside her. The daily insults had become fuel for something she didn't quite understand yet. Tiffany, meanwhile, seemed to feel that something was changing. The easy target she'd been making fun of for months was starting to fight back, and it made her angry. She tried harder, getting more friends to join in on the harassment. They started following Bethany to the art room, peeking through the windows and making faces at her while she ate lunch. They'd whisper and point when she walked by, making sure she knew they were talking about her. But Bethany was changing in ways that went beyond just being more confident. She was remembering who she used to be, the girl who had won karate competitions, who had trained with adults twice her size and held her own. She was remembering what it felt like to be strong, to be capable, to be respected for her skills, not judged for how she looked. She remembered her last competition in Denver with perfect clarity. She'd been fighting a girl who had beaten her twice before, someone everyone expected to win. But Bethany had been patient, had waited for the right moment, and when her opponent made a mistake, Bethany had made a perfect move that surprised everyone. The respect in her opponent's eyes afterwards meant more than the gold medal. One night, while her parents were watching TV, Bethany went to her room and got out her old karate uniform. The familiar feel of the fabric in her hands brought back a rush of memories. She looked at herself in the mirror, really looked, and saw not the shy girl who walked the halls of Northwood High, but the fighter who had spent years training. The next morning, Bethany left her house half an hour earlier than usual. Instead of going straight to school, she walked to the park 4 blocks away. In the quiet of the early morning, with dew still on the grass and the sun just starting to come up, she began to practice the moves she'd done thousands of times. Her body remembered every move, every block, every breath. The moves flowed like water, each technique precise and controlled. Bethany felt the familiar burn in her muscles, the satisfying stretch of muscles that had been ignored for too long. When she was finished, she was breathing hard, but felt more centered than she had in months. She made this early morning workout a habit. Push-ups, sit-ups, practicing punches and kicks, all done in the quiet of the park before school. Her body started to get stronger, her reactions getting faster. More importantly, her mind started to clear. The feeling of being a victim that had been clouding her mind started to disappear. Students at school started to notice the change more clearly. Bethany moved with a different energy now, a quiet strength that was hard to explain, but impossible to miss. She still wore her sweater, still kept to herself, but there was something in how she stood that showed she wasn't hiding anymore. During lunch in the art room, Bethany found herself thinking less about Tiffany's cruelty and more about how she was going to respond to it. She realized that holding back hadn't been brave. It had been fear. Fear of what might happen. Fear of being judged. Fear of becoming someone she didn't want to be. But now she was starting to understand that there was a difference between starting a fight and defending yourself. The big moment came on a Thursday afternoon in December. Bethany was leaving through the side door of the school, trying to avoid the usual crowd, when she saw Tiffany, Ashley, and 2 other girls waiting for her. They had clearly planned this, standing between Bethany and the gate that led to the street. "Going somewhere, little mouse." Tiffany's voice sounded different now, meaner. Bethany could tell that her growing strength had been noticed and was seen as a threat. "I'm going home," Bethany said simply, tightening her grip on her backpack straps. "Not so fast," Ashley stepped forward. "We want to talk to you." Bethany looked around and saw that they were pretty much alone. The side of the school was empty except for them, and the building blocked them from being seen from the street. Her heart beat faster, but not because she was scared, because she was ready. "We've been watching you," Tiffany went on, moving closer, "acting all tough lately, like you're someone special, but we know what you really are." Bethany didn't say anything, just watched them carefully. She could read their body language, could see the anger building in how they stood. These weren't just mean girls anymore. They were like animals who had trapped what they thought was an easy target. "You know what I think?" Tiffany's voice turned cruel. "I think you need to be reminded who you really are." Without warning, Tiffany shoved Bethany hard in the chest. Bethany stumbled backwards but didn't fall. The push was hard enough to be a crime, mean enough to cross the line from just words to a physical attack. "There's the little mouse we know," Tiffany laughed. "All that fake strength goes away pretty quick, doesn't it?" Bethany stood up straight slowly, her eyes never leaving Tiffany's face. "Don't touch me again." "Or what?" Tiffany pushed her again, even harder this time. "What are you going to do about it?" Bethany's training kicked in without her even thinking about it. She took the push, using Tiffany's own strength to keep her balance. When Tiffany reached out to push her a third time, Bethany was ready. She grabbed Tiffany's wrist in the middle of the push, twisted it smoothly, and in one quick move did a perfect arm throw that sent Tiffany flying through the air. Tiffany landed hard on the ground, the air knocked out of her, staring up at the sky in shock. The other girls froze, their mouths open. No one moved for a few seconds. Bethany stood over Tiffany, perfectly balanced, breathing calmly. "I told you not to touch me." Tiffany struggled to sit up, her face red with embarrassment and anger. "You crazy freak, what was that?" "That was me defending myself," Bethany said quietly, "which I have every right to do." Ashley found her voice. "You can't just attack people. We'll tell on you." Bethany looked at her calmly. "Tell on me for what? Defending myself against an attack? There are security cameras on this building. They'll show exactly who started this." Tiffany finally managed to stand up, anger burning in her eyes. "You think you're so tough now? That was just a lucky move." "It wasn't luck," Bethany said simply. Something in her voice made Tiffany stop. There was no bragging, no anger, just quiet certainty. Bethany stood completely relaxed, but Tiffany could feel the strength hidden underneath. "Who are you?" Tiffany asked, and for the first time there was doubt in her voice. Bethany pulled back her sweater, letting her long brown hair fall down. "I'm someone who's been trying really hard to avoid this. But since you made this happen, let me be clear. I've been training in karate for 7 years. I've won state competitions. I can break boards with my bare hands, and I know exactly how to stop a fight without hurting anyone too badly." The girls took a step back. "But more importantly," Bethany went on, "I know the difference between using my skills to hurt people and using them to protect myself. What just happened was protection. If you attack me again, it will still be protection, but it might be a lot worse for you." Tiffany's face was white now. "You're threatening us." "I'm telling you what will happen," Bethany corrected. "I've tried to handle this without fighting. I've walked away, I've ignored you, I've done everything I could to avoid this moment, but you wouldn't let it go. You kept pushing and pushing until you pushed too far." She looked at each of the girls. "I don't want to hurt any of you. I don't want to be known as the girl who beats people up, but I also won't be anyone's victim. Not anymore." Ashley tugged on Tiffany's sleeve. "Come on, let's just go." But Tiffany's pride was hurt, and that makes people do dumb things. "You got lucky once," she snapped. "Let's see how tough you really are." She ran at Bethany, trying to grab her. Bethany stepped to the side smoothly, grabbed Tiffany's arm, and used her own strength to send her tumbling into the fence behind them. Tiffany hit the fence hard and fell to the ground, stunned. "Stay down," Bethany said calmly. "Please." Tiffany looked up at her, feeling a mix of pain and disbelief. The other girls were backing away now, clearly not wanting to find out what Bethany could do. "This is over," Bethany said firmly. "All of it. The mean comments, the teasing, the bumping into me in the hallways. It stops now." "You can't make us do anything," Ashley said, but she didn't sound sure of herself. Bethany looked at her patiently. "I'm not making you do anything. I'm just telling you what will happen if you don't stop. I've been training since I was 9 years old. I know how to defend myself, and I will. Every time." She helped Tiffany stand up, and Tiffany didn't try to pull away. "I don't want to fight you. I never wanted to fight any of you, but I also won't let you treat me like I'm worthless just because you think you can get away with it." Tiffany brushed herself off, her face burning with shame. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Bethany said quietly, "because now you know who you're dealing with, and you know that I won't take it anymore." She picked up her backpack and walked towards the gate, leaving the group of girls standing there in silence. As she walked away, she could hear them arguing, their voices loud with shock and confusion. Bethany walked home feeling strange. Not happy exactly, but relieved. Like she'd been carrying a heavy weight for months, and it had finally been lifted. At dinner that night, her parents noticed the change right away. Bethany sat up straighter, looked them in the eye when she talked, and actually smiled during the meal. When her mother asked about school, Bethany said, "It was better today. I think things are going to be different now." Her father looked at her carefully. "Different how?" Bethany thought about it. "I remembered who I am." The next Monday, Bethany walked into school without her sweater pulled up over her head. Her long hair fell freely, and she moved with the quiet strength of someone who had faced her fears and won. Students noticed the change immediately. People stopped talking as she walked by, but the whispers sounded more like respect than mockery. In the hallway, Bethany saw Tiffany and her group. For a moment, the air felt tense. Then Tiffany looked away first, suddenly interested in something in her locker. The others did the same, and Bethany walked past without any trouble. Mr. Harrison came up to her after class. "You seem different lately, Bethany. More confident. It's good to see." Bethany smiled. "I've been working on standing up for myself." "That's great," the teacher said warmly. "But if you ever need help, remember that there are adults here who can help you." "I know," Bethany said, "but sometimes you have to help yourself first." The changes in the school were small at first, but they kept happening. Students who had ignored Bethany before started to nod to her when they saw her. A few even tried to talk to her, curious about the quiet girl who had somehow gotten Tiffany Sinclair to respect her. During lunch, Bethany still liked eating in the art room, but now it was because she wanted to, not because she had to. She could have eaten in the lunchroom if she wanted to, but she liked the quiet place where she could read and draw without being bothered. One afternoon, as she was leaving the art room, she saw a younger student being cornered by two older boys. The freshman looked terrified, holding his books tight while the bigger students demanded his lunch money. Bethany stopped, remembering how she had felt months before. Then she walked over calmly. "Is there a problem here?" she asked quietly. The two bullies looked at her like she was nothing. "Mind your own business, girl." "Actually," Bethany said, stepping closer, "I think this is everyone's business. You're on school property, bothering another student. That makes it my business." Something in her voice made them look at her again. They'd heard the rumors about Tiffany Sinclair's group leaving Bethany alone, but they'd thought it was just gossip. "Look, we're just talking to our friend here," one of them said, but he didn't sound sure. Bethany looked at the freshman. "Are they your friends?" The boy shook his head quickly. "Then I suggest you leave," Bethany said to the bullies, "before this becomes a bigger problem than you want to deal with." The boys looked at each other. Bethany was smaller than both of them, but there was something about her, something in the way she stood, that told them fighting her would be a bad idea. "Whatever," one of them said, and they walked away. The freshman looked at Bethany with admiration. "Thank you," he said. "They've been doing that to me for weeks." Bethany felt angry that this had happened, but she also felt something else, a sense of purpose. "What's your name?" "Ethan," the boy said shyly. "Listen, Ethan," Bethany said gently, "bullies are cowards. They pick on people they think won't fight back. But once you show them you won't be an easy target, they usually find someone else. She stopped, thinking about her own experience. That doesn't mean you have to fight, but you do have to stand up for yourself. And if you ever need help doing that, find me. Ethan nodded, and Bethany watched him walk away with a little more confidence. She realized that what had happened to her had given her something valuable, the power to help others find their strength. 2 weeks later, Bethany was surprised when Tiffany came up to her locker. The former Queen Bee looked nervous, which was very different from how she usually acted. "Can I talk to you?" Tiffany asked quietly. Bethany nodded, curious. "I wanted to apologize," Tiffany said quickly. "For everything. The mean comments, the teasing, all of it. I was horrible to you for no reason." Bethany looked at her face. "Why?" Tiffany looked uncomfortable. "Honestly, I was jealous of you. You were smart, you kept to yourself, you didn't care what anyone thought. I guess I thought if I could make you feel bad, it would make me feel better." Bethany nodded slowly. "That makes sense." "I've been thinking about what you said," Tiffany went on. "About how you didn't want to hurt anyone. Even after everything I did to you, you only did what you had to do to stop me, not to really hurt me. That's not what most people would have done." "Fighting should be the last choice," Bethany said quietly, "and even then, you should only do what's needed." Tiffany looked at her with what might have been respect. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "At my grandpa's dojo back in Denver. Karate." "Why didn't you ever say anything? I mean, if people knew you could fight, they would have left you alone." Bethany thought about it. "Because I didn't want to be known as the girl who fights. I wanted to be known for other things, but I also wasn't going to let myself be treated badly." Tiffany nodded slowly. "I understand, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see what kind of person you really are." Bethany held out her hand. "Start over?" Tiffany shook it gratefully. "Start over." Over the next few weeks, Bethany saw Tiffany trying to be nicer to other students. She wasn't perfect. Old habits don't disappear overnight, but she was clearly trying to use her power to help others. Bethany kept going to the park to practice karate, but now it felt different. Instead of getting ready for a fight, she was keeping up a practice that had become a part of who she was. She was no longer the scared girl hiding in baggy sweaters, but she also wasn't the angry victim wanting revenge. She was just Bethany, strong, capable, and comfortable being herself. The story about what happened with Tiffany became something of a legend at Northwood High, though the details got bigger with each telling. Bethany didn't correct people or try to make it sound less important. She let the story be what it was, knowing that sometimes being known as strong was its own kind of protection. On a warm day in late spring, Bethany was walking home from school when she saw a group of middle schoolers surrounding a smaller child. The scene was sadly familiar, the circle of people watching, the cruel laughter, the victim trying to disappear. Bethany walked up to the group calmly. "That's enough," she said quietly. The middle schoolers looked at her like they didn't care. "Who are you, his mom?" Bethany smiled a little. "No, I'm someone who knows exactly what you're doing and why you need to stop." Something in her voice made them stop. Bethany had learned that true power didn't come from yelling or threatening, but from quiet certainty. "He's weird," one of the bullies said. "He doesn't talk to anyone." "Maybe he's shy," Bethany said. "Maybe he's new. Maybe he's just different. None of those things make it okay to treat him like this." She looked at each of the bullies. "You all know this is wrong. You know it, and you're doing it anyway because you think you won't get in trouble." The child looked up at Bethany with hope. She could see herself in his eyes, the fear, the shame, the desperate hope that someone would help. "There are always consequences," Bethany went on. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. The question is whether you want to find out what those consequences are. The bullies looked at each other. Bethany wasn't threatening them, but there was something about her that told them they shouldn't test her. "Whatever," the leader said, and the group left. Bethany helped the younger boy pick up his things. "You okay?" He nodded, still too shaken to talk. "It gets better," Bethany told him gently. "I promise it gets better. But you have to believe you deserve better first." As she walked away, Bethany thought about how far she'd come. Months ago, she had been the victim in that circle. Now, she was the one stopping it. The change hadn't been easy, and it hadn't been fast, but it had been complete. She knew now that her grandpa's lessons about respect and control hadn't been about avoiding fights. They'd been about choosing the right fights and fighting them with honor. She'd learned that strength wasn't about scaring others, but about not being scared yourself. Most importantly, she'd learned that standing up for yourself didn't mean becoming like the people who had hurt you. Bethany got out her phone and texted her parents. "Had a good day at school. See you at dinner." For the first time in months, that was completely true. 30,024 plus 1,076 equals 31,100 characters.